Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel if you're new around here. My name is Hannah Hawthorne and I am Simply Witched. In my last video, I talked about some of my goals for 2024, which mainly revolve around getting out and doing things. I didn't drive for a long time, and if you want a little bit of explanation about that, you can go back and watch that. It also explains kind of where I am in my life right now and where I am going. I'm in the middle of moving, I'm rebranding my content, but the point of this video is I am getting out and I am doing things. Obviously, we are in my car, and I have just come from the coffee shop where I got some coffee, and I am at yet another state park. But before I walk around, I thought that I would drink this and do a little Q&A. The main element of my rebrand will be adding more of who I am to my platforms. For a long time, I really focused on education, and while that isn't going anywhere, I'm going to make my social media more me and less Simply Witched. And the informational content that I'm going to create will be in designated places, like books or courses or YouTube videos. But not this YouTube video. This YouTube video is all about me and my personal practice, as I feel this is the perfect time to reintroduce myself to anybody who is new or who's been around a while and has only really seen me make things about things and not about me. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to stop rambling, and I'm going to pick up the questions from my Instagram. I asked you all on Instagram for questions, and I'm going to answer them here. So, first one. What parts of your practice do you choose to share versus which part do you keep solitary? That's a really good question. For a long time, I kind of shared everything, and I didn't have very many boundaries. In my personal life, I consider myself to be a pretty open book. There are things that I don't share with others, mainly because they're hard to explain to other people. I feel like a lot of, your own personal beliefs are sometimes hard to put into words, but I don't really have a problem with sharing those the best I can anyway, with those closest to me. However, online, it has taken me a while to realize that anybody can stumble onto my videos, and I am not sharing with just those closest to me. And on my time online, I have learned that there are things that I don't want to share. Because when you do put things online, people ask questions and they kind of put it under a microscope. And people in your real life will never do that. And sometimes I feel like when I post something online, I'm immediately at the defense of my beliefs, and I don't like that. It just feels like some things are too sacred to share with everybody. But as far as specifics, I don't like to share things that I'm figuring out, which is tough because my practice is constantly changing. And I feel like I used to get stuck in my practice because I would share things, and then once I felt like I had shared them, they had to be concrete pieces of my practice, and I could never adjust them because I made them public. This is just to remind you that life is always in transit. And because of that, your practice will always be in transit. And there is nothing wrong with changing your practice, and growth is never embarrassing. I'm kind of speaking to myself here. And even if you share something with the world, your practice doesn't always have to be that way. Do you follow instructions always, or do you do your rituals as your heart guides sometimes? I very rarely follow instructions, like spell books that have been published. I very rarely will pick up one of those and do a spell word for word, line by line. Usually I use them as bones to create my own workings, because I don't believe that if you do a spell from a book, unless you understand the why behind the writing, it's not going to work for you. That's the thing about spell books, and just witchcraft in general when it is written about or content is made about it. We simplifies not a word. We simple size. What is that word? Simplify. We simplify things so much that we leave things behind. And this is not creators or authors' faults. It is difficult to explain everything, and you gotta word count and all of that. But I think sometimes books feel like easy bake witchcraft. If you do these things, say these words, you will have these results. When in all actuality, there is more behind magic than that, but that cannot be taught. It has to be done. So get your books, do what they say, follow your intuition, and adjust the workings to you and your personal practice. That Florida sun is vicious. One second, let's move. Oh my god, I can't even see anything. I'm driving just into the sun. Great, that's good. Okay, next question. Can you do a video of how you grew up, schooling, how you met your husband, etc.? I could do a dedicated video. Sometimes I think about making the Draw My Life video, even though it's like 10 years old. Maybe even longer than that now. Do you guys remember that trend where everybody was like drawing their life? I love those videos, and I feel like every YouTuber ever made them like 10, 15 years ago. But I missed the mark on that, so maybe I'll have to do it. I'm from northern Minnesota. When I was in 10th grade, I moved to northern Florida, where I finished high school. I met my husband in high school. We were high school sweethearts. He was living down here as well. He's not originally from here either. His family was in the military and they were stationed here at that time for him to finish high school. And we met and started dating my senior year, and we have been together ever since. We did get married now a year and 1 month ago. I made a video about our hand fasting. It was a really beautiful ceremony. We eloped because all of his family were together for the holidays. And he's the best part of my life. Directly following high school, when I graduated, I was actually a Christian camp counselor, and that's in my spiritual journey story. I'm telling you, there's a lot to it. I went back up to Minnesota, and I was a Christian camp counselor, and he actually came with me. We did that for like 4 months. And then following that, after we had been together for like a year and change, we moved in together in Miami so he could go to school. We lived in Miami for 6 years in total, but with a little break in the middle mainly because of COVID. So all of my adult life pretty much was spent in Miami, and I'm about to turn 25, and we just closed that chapter. We were down there for his school. I think I said that. He graduated, and now we are about to move to Oregon. So that's like little cliff notes, but maybe I'll have to do the Draw My Life video. Now that you're moving, are you planning on making any changes to your practice? Absolutely. I love this question. Yes, I feel like everything about my practice is going to change. To me, the craft is so based around your land, the land that you live on, the spirits that live there, and how you can be a steward of that environment. So naturally, because I am going to be somewhere new, all of that is going to change. And I'm really excited to start at kind of ground zero and build my practice back up. This is an exercise that's in Thorne Mooney's book, The Witch's Path. She explains that when you're kind of in a crossroads in your craft, or if you just want to deepen it, to strip it completely back and basically build an entirely new practice from what you have in your toolbox now. What are you doing? What makes sense? And I am going to do that. I want to start very, very basic and get to know the ecosystem around me, what the seasons are, what the local flora and fauna is, and take my ancestry into account because I am on my ancestral journey, if you will. I am primarily French, and over the last 2 years, I have been trying to embrace my heritage and learn the customs and traditions of my ancestors so I can use them as a way to venerate them in my practice. So it will be really me moving to this new place and thinking about how they would have practiced if they were there with the local flora and fauna and that environment at their disposal, and finding ways to integrate the two of those, my heritage and the environment around me, to create a very animistic folk practice. Do you have a spell for burnout to get energy? Yes. Stop everything that you are doing. I struggle with burnout, as does, I think, everybody on the planet. It's just your mind and body asking for a break when you have done too much. And the idea of burnout is kind of silly. It's like this thing that you should overcome to do more. But this year, I am not feeling guilt for resting. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, I know that this is easier said than done and a privilege to be able to stop, and sometimes it's not possible. But the cure that I have found is to just stop. I try to listen to my body and treat it the way it wants to be, and when you are feeling burnt out, you are tired and deserve rest. Ooh, do you consider your practice religious or more just spiritual? Oh gosh, okay, this is actually something that I could give a TED Talk about. This is the thing that people who know me hope that others don't bring up because it will set me off. And this has a lot to do with the way I grew up, right? I grew up in the church, I was religious. And then I found the craft, and suddenly I was spiritual, but not religious. And I realized that I was saying that because I didn't feel like I was worthy still. And what I mean by this is, I think we do ourselves a disservice when we as witches, or any spiritual practice, says I'm spiritual but not religious, because I think that we are diminishing what we are doing. In our world, we have a pretty negative connotation of the word religious. At least I do, and a lot of the people around me, because they have religious trauma. And it leaves people with such a bad taste in their mouth that they don't want to call their practice religious. But to me, my practice is just as sacred as someone going to church or whatever official religious thing that they are doing. I have a dedicated spiritual religious practice, right? I do things that are so true to my spirit and make me feel so connected to the divine. Why would I not call it religious? I am super curious what you all think. Please comment if you consider yourself to be religious, to be spiritual, and if you consider yourself to be spiritual, why? Next question. What direction do you see your path heading down? Or are you happy to go with the flow? Like I said, very based in the world around me, working with my local flora and fauna, and soon that will be Oregon. I see myself spending the next several years really getting to know that land and reacquainting myself with the northern kind of flora that I might be used to in Minnesota, and meeting new ones whom will be new to me in Oregon. I see a lot of field guides in my future and Plants of the Pacific Northwest style books. Next to that, my French ancestry has really connected deeply with me. And I don't speak French, but I would like to learn, because a lot of the resources and the information that I come across about French folk magic is in French. So not being able to read it is challenging. Learning French is something that I would like to do for logistic reasons, and then also as an offering, if you will, to those that came before me. Beyond that, obviously, astrology is a guiding force in my practice, and I'm excited to see how that will continue to deepen. This past year, I did a lot of work as far as in that realm of my practice, astrological witchcraft, and I connected with my planetary ruler and specific placements in my chart in a way that I had not before, like where specific planets were and how I could work with them as it related to that. And then probably some seasonal stuff. I've struggled with the Wheel of the Year. I've made a lot of videos about it, and I'm excited to rebuild a Wheel of the Year once I move out there, because I used to follow the Wiccan Wheel of the Year to a T, but then I realized it didn't make a whole lot of sense for me as I was living in a place that was totally different, Miami at the time, than what the Wheel of the Year reflects. And I felt kind of lost as far as my Wheel of the Year since then, because once I unpacked this, I was like, well, I'm leaving Miami, so I don't really have a wheel here, you know? And now that I'm going somewhere else, that hopefully will be home, I'm excited to really establish traditions and have things that I do every winter and every summer, and plants that I watch come up every fall, and animals that I see migrate in the spring, and build my wheel like that. What drew you into witchcraft, and why is it worth pursuing? I get questions like this sometimes that are like, what's the point? I think people outside the craft, and maybe some in, see witchcraft as like a means to an end, right? It's all spells, it's all give me. And that's the least exciting thing about my practice. My practice is so linked in connecting to the earth and the spirits that I share the land with and those who came before me, and is way less about, I need a new pair of shoes, you know? And I think, unless you spoke to a witch, what you would see online or in movies, media, would be spells to get something. And for me, a lot of my work is devotional. It is offerings. It is connecting to the divine. And so for me, that's what it's all about. And that's worth everything. Of course, there is spell work, and sometimes I do spells for my own personal gain, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But that's not what makes it worth it to me. And to answer the question of what drew me in, I kind of accidentally wound up here, and if you see my spiritual journey story, you'll kind of see that. And you'll hear that from a lot of witches. It feels like coming home. A lot of the stuff that is part of my practice is things that I was already doing. I just didn't know it. I didn't know there were names or other people doing these things. I've always been drawn to witchcraft because it is so intrinsically me. And not saying all witchcraft has to look a certain way, but the way that my witchcraft looks, I've just always been this way, and it was really coming into myself rather than discovering something new. What are your favorite hobbies that are not witchy? I love to read, both fiction and nonfiction. I love to do art. I love to paint, and I love coloring books. I love to sit and color as I drink my morning coffee. I've been trying to find things that I can do to stay off my phone, and coloring and puzzles have been really helpful for that. I also love video games. I've always loved getting lost in a story, in the pages of a book or the screen of a game. As you probably know, or if you don't, I stream on Twitch, and that has been a really great outlet for that. I used to do a lot more recreational activities, like growing up, I went camping and fishing a lot. I went snowshoeing and snowmobiling and snowboarding and ice skating, a lot of winter activities in Minnesota. And I'm so excited to get into that again once I move to Oregon. I want to try skiing really badly. I've never done that. I hope to find like one activity per season that I really enjoy. I obviously love to cook. Being with family and friends is one of the most fulfilling things for me. What else do I like to do? I think that's about all that I can come up with. And the sun is actually setting, so that's probably the perfect time to leave you. But I hope that you've enjoyed this video and gotten to know me a little bit more. I am so excited to make more videos for you and explore my content. Content creation is another huge hobby of mine. I love to create, I love to film, and I want to get more into cinematography. But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. There is a link down below to all of my other platforms, as well as to join my Discord, buy my book, or book an astrology reading with me. Until next time, have a magical rest of your day. Blessed be, and goodbye, everyone.